Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classes of Mail. My name is Alan Gigax and I have another guest in studio. You may notice that it's a little bit echoey this time, just like it was when I had Michael over. It's because we're actually in the bathroom. We're both taking dumps right now. And so we're sitting here holding hands and we're going to record the podcast. All right, no, really we're in my living room because the regular recording studio, it does keep the echo down, but it's a little bit too intimate. And so I like Dave. Dave is our guest, but not that much. So anyway, I want to introduce you guys a fellow carrier at the East Las Vegas Post Office who I work with and who's been something of a mentor to me because he was a former steward and we really see things eye to eye on like what the union should be doing, what our role is, and I've been able to go to him to get advice. And Dave is supporting my candidacy for vice president. So I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce yourself. Dave, say hello.
Hey, everybody. My name's Dave. I've been a carrier for about 27 years now.
Damn.
Yeah, it's been
That's
a long
time.
Yeah.
You must have started when you were like 14.
It started at, 18?
Dude, that's wild. So you're going to have to work like 40 years before you can retire.
38.
38, man.
Well, 1 year's a temporary employee as a casual.
Oh, okay.
So that started during high school as a casual.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
So this has been like your only job.
Half my life has been at this job, yeah.
But this has been your only like real big like full-time job, right?
It's my first full-time job.
How about that, dude?
So I've been in 3 different offices. I've been in 3 different unions.
You've been in
branches.
Vegas the whole time?
No,
Oh,
I've been in California.
Mm-hmm.
I was in branch 1100.
Oh,
So that's where James
right.
came from.
Yeah, of course.
And Keisha Lewis is from there too.
Yeah, we'll talk about her.
And then,
And we'll talk about Henry.
I'm in branch 2502 now.
Yeah, 2502, the fighting 2502.
Yeah.
Well, not so fighting these
lackluster.
days. And yeah, that's kind of part of what we're going to talk about. So the first thing I want to go over is that you used to be a steward in branch 2502.
Correct.
How long were you a steward?
About 2 years probably.
Okay. And what level did you get to? Like what did you do as a steward?
Formal A.
Formal A. All right. So you definitely know your stuff as a steward.
I know enough, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he certainly knows enough to give me advice, but it's not a real high bar because again, I've not been doing this steward stuff for real long.
You cut yourself short. He's actually learned. You hear his podcast. He's learned a lot.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. And let's talk about this now, because one of the knocks against my running mate, Michael, who's running for president, is they say about him down at the hall, and they say this like it's a pejorative, that, he files grievances on everything. Like he's indiscriminate about what he files grievances on. And you heard something similar about that about me today, right?
Yes.
From whom?
Management.
Yeah. I got a reputation already.
And they actually gave you respect for that. That's actually what I was impressed with when I was talking to them about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky that we have good management at our station. And
very lucky.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's not going to last much longer. So our one really, really good supervisor is about to retire. And so I'm having to really make sure that our folks are coached up, because when you get a new supervisor in and maybe a new station manager, who knows what they're going to be like. But the chances of getting 2 really good ones in a row, pretty much 0.
They're really good, but still, never trust them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that even with the really good one, that she's savvy and she's still on management's side.
But I would not trust her.
Yeah, right. She's great. So again, they were saying that I filed grievances on everything. And to me, that's the role of the steward, is to protect all 4 corners of the contract.
Correct. That's your job.
Yeah. And that's where we don't get that support we need from the union hall.
No, we do not. Because if you want to file, they'll question you on everything you want to do. They don't support you.
Yep.
That's from our leadership is not there for us.
Right. So when you were a steward, what caused you to stop being a steward?
It's more political reasons with the top. They weren't there when I needed them. So it was an issue that I just couldn't deal with them anymore. So I had to step down. I was still there for my carriers.
Yeah, and you've still been kind of a de facto steward in that you give advice, you remind people about the contract. And when we have our morning stand-ups, you're one of the people, like this morning at our stand-up, the supervisor, what was it that Jackie said about was it about the load time? No, it was about the 3 days, right, about calling in. Because every morning I coach people up, and I was talking about how if you're going to take leave, if you feel like you're really going to be sick for a while, don't just call in for 1 day, call in for 3 days. Because the first day is unscheduled, but the next 2 days are not unscheduled. So you can get more time off. And then the supervisor says, yeah, but if you call in for 3 days, we're going to require you to bring in documentation. And Dave was quick to chime in. Go ahead, chime in
4
now.
days.
Yeah, exactly. It's 4 days. At 3 days, no documentation is required. Yep. And then, as a credit to how our carriers are now coached up, somebody else who's not even a steward. Oh, it was Miguel. I think Miguel used to be a steward back in the day. But he chimed in and said, even with documentation, management can accept your statement as documentation.
They're not doctors.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's really cool to have that and to have that kind of support. So even though Dave is not a steward anymore, you know, he's still...
Oh, I still get calls. I have people calling me all the time. It's something you do. Like, you know, I feel bad. I always want to protect. Like I tell Alan, our job is to protect the weak. Yeah, there's a lot of people, you're going to see management go after the weak. That's what they do.
Oh, 100%.
They'll leave me alone. Alan, since he's learning everything he is, they're going to leave him alone no matter what.
Yeah, it's true. I hear stories about other stewards who get aggressive with management, and then management starts like following them every day and really fucking with them. And maybe it's because we have good management, but I haven't experienced that at all.
Aggressive is different. Like, you know, like you just question them, but I've never been aggressive with my management. I won't be aggressive. Like, I've questioned them. Right. But I've never been where I've been aggressive with them. Yeah. Like, you know, you question them. Like, you question them, but like, you know, I always ask them a question that I already know the answer for. Yeah, sure. You know, they already know that now. Like, when I talk to our supervisors, they already know when I'm asking them a question, they know I know the answer. So they know. Just like, okay, you're messing with me now. Yeah, and now management knows that, like Dave and I both know the contract. We know the ELM. So when I had my episode about from the ELM where we found out that you can get paid to learn a foreign language, Dave actually tested it. And he went up to the station manager and said, hey, I heard I can get paid to learn a foreign language. You'll pay for it. And what was Lee's response? Do you remember? Jesus, you and Alan always come up with these things.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's that empowerment that comes from education.
So I do the blood donor. I always do that. Like,
yeah, there you go. You get paid to donate blood, absolutely. Or you do it on the clock. Yep.
Yeah, so they pay me
administrative leave. Yeah, that's awesome. So when you had this falling out with the union, with the folks down at the hall, did you also resign from the union?
No, I would never resign from the union.
Okay, so that's good, right?
So I have a problem if it's my local. Like, yes, I have a problem with the local. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but my national, I'm always going to support my national. I know we're at a hard time right now. Right. But I'm always going to support the national no matter what. I have no problem. I love the union. I'm always going to support the union. Yeah. They paid for a lot for me and my family.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the NALC health benefit plan alone is worth sticking around for. Yeah. I went through that same when I got fired from the Carrier Academy the second time by our president. I considered quitting the union, but you know, I just can't for the same reasons, right? The union as a whole is a good thing, whether the guy who's in office right now is good or not. Yes. And I know we have scabs at our station, and you know, I don't want to out anybody by name here, but when you talk to them about why did you leave the union, I've done
that. I talked to almost everyone, and because I had a question and asked them why they're not in the union. I want to know why they weren't in the union. Yeah. And almost everyone said is because of our current president. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And one of the guys who's a scab who I really like, he told me openly that, dude, if you get elected in, I'll rejoin the union. And so that's really cool. All right, so this is all kind of preamble because the real reason I brought Dave here today is to talk about a personal experience that Dave had with our union that is just, it was ridiculous. So why don't you go ahead and start telling about that. Okay, so my wife was, she ended up getting a letter of warning. And so the letter of warning was for a sleeper in her case. Mm-hmm.
Just one letter left behind accidentally. Yes.
Yeah. And this was because what she did was she filed a grievance because the union tells you to stick up for your rights. So she decided to stick up for her rights, so she filed a grievance.
She filed a grievance just as a carrier?
Yeah, as a carrier, class action.
Wow. Yeah.
Because they were telling her to leave on the scanner. They were saying, drop all your stuff and leave.
Right, which is inappropriate. Yes, that's an invalid instruction.
So she did that. She filed it. I told her just to file your grievance. I go, your union's got your back. So I support the union. They always got your back. And I said, don't worry, they got you. So she filed the grievance. Her union rep over there said that he did not want to file it. because he said that he'll talk to the management, but he will not file it. And I told her no. I called Paul and said, you need to file that grievance. I called our president. I said, you need to file that grievance. I go, this is not acceptable.
Right. And an employee can initiate a grievance. It's laid out right in 15.2 of the contract. Let me just read this real quick. Informal step A. Any employee who feels aggrieved must discuss the grievance with the employee's immediate supervisor within 14 days. And this constitutes the informal step A filing date. The employee, if he or she so desires, may be accompanied and represented by the employee's steward or a union representative. So the employee can absolutely file that grievance on their own.
Yes.
Okay.
So she told the union to file it. So Paul he called the shop steward and told him to file the grievance for them. Mm-hmm. It's for my wife. So they filed the grievance. So they filed the grievance and they settled it. The dumbass shop steward at her office wrote her name as a class action.
Instead of a class action, just her.
So the fucking idiot doesn't know how to write it.
Right.
So he wrote that. I know, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then,
these are things that can be fixed by training, but yeah.
And so he wrote that, and so her name shows up on it. So management sees her name on there.
Right, and now she's the troublemaker.
So here comes the retaliation.
Right.
So management was watching her. The next day after that happened, she had a 1838 done on her.
Dude, wait a minute. I have not heard this part of the story.
So she had an 1838 done on her.
So she files this grievance. The management is taken to task, at least sort of. And the very next day, they do an 1838.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did 1838 on her.
That's ridiculous.
They watched her.
Yeah.
They watched her pull down all her mail.
Right.
Then that same day, they said that she left a letter in there. You know, they watched her pull all her mail down. They said that she left a sleeper in there. Dude. Management's job was supposed to watch her pull all her mail down. Right. So management failed their job by watching her do that.
Of course. And if they saw it at the time and didn't say anything about it, then management is equally culpable for the delay of mail.
Yes. Right. Or if management saw it, just like how we had to come back and get our parcels, why not call her to come back, get that letter, and deliver it?
Exactly. Yep.
So they wrote her up on that, gave her a letter of warning for that.
Okay.
So I told her to file a grievance, it's just because she did not deserve that letter of warning. Right. Because that's just that's unacceptable.
Right.
So I called Paul and talked to him about it, and I told him.
That's our local union president.
Yeah, our vice president.
Yeah.
Our president.
At the time, he was vice president.
No, I think he was. He was our vice president.
Yeah, regardless.
Yeah. So I called him and talked to him about it, and I guess at the time, somebody called the business agent, Keisha Lewis. Mm-hmm. They called her, and it was not us. Somebody called her, and somebody told, like, the shop stewards there came to my wife and started telling my wife, I know you called the business agent. Okay. They had a stand up that morning saying somebody called the business agent, and we do not want you guys calling business agent. Do not go above our heads and call the business agent. And that they did that, and they came to her case. Oh no, they had to stand up twice, right? Back-to-back days. Back-to-back days, they had it in front of her, called her out. Uh-huh. And then... So
was the call to the business agent over her filing a...
No.
So what was...
It wasn't her. We don't even know who called.
So this is unrelated, and they just finger her because...
So they came... The next day, I think it was a Saturday, and they came to her case. Both the shop stewards came to my wife's case. Yeah. They went to her case. They said, I know you called the business agent. And she's like, how do you know? Like, what is it? She goes, I did not call. I did not call. Right. And they said... Paul told us you called.
Dude.
Our president told
Yeah.
So that you called and that we have proof. And her shop steward that's not there no more said that we have proof. It's on his phone. And so... Okay.
Now, you know your wife, obviously, and she would tell you if she did. Did she call the business agent?
No, of course not. Yeah. When I called Paul later, I told him I would tell you I'd call the business agent because I want to call the business agent. I'll tell you, I'm not afraid of you guys. Right. So they were at her case yelling at her. Two shop stewards. My wife is only 5'2", 125 pounds, 30 pounds. They were at her case yelling at her. Other carriers had to come over there, tell the shop stewards to stop.
And this is essentially on word from the president.
Yes.
From the hall that they're doing this. Yes. This is unbelievable.
So they're there yelling at her, and then the other person had to come over there, tell them to stop that. And he told the shop stewards, you're supposed to protect her, not yell at her.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they told her, they said, leave her alone. Right. So I talked to Paul. We also had to talk, we called Paul, right? We had to talk to him and about the grievance. And Paul said that.
This is the letter of warning over the sleeper.
Yes, the letter of warning. And he said that since we made waves, you're going to expect waves back at you. So
right, as if you brought this upon yourself, like you deserve it.
Yeah, he said since she did that, they expected that's what we should expect that to happen.
Right.
So, and honestly, yes, we did expect something to come back. Honestly, that's what we do. But I always told my wife, like, you know, because my wife used to be a teacher. So her union as a teacher is terrible. And I told her always as a carrier, our union has always been awesome. From where I was in California, 1100, awesome union.
Yeah.
Here, it was actually not that bad for a while. And it's been, last few years, it's been really bad. And I always told her our union's been awesome, awesome, awesome. And then...
Well, you know, to interrupt for a sec, the people who made it awesome at 1100 are now like the core of the concerned letter carriers.
Yes. And
the person who's kind of made things shitty from the top down, Brian Renfro, is the target of the concerned letter carriers. And that's the hope, is with the CLC, that we can rectify some of that and make the union as awesome as it used to be.
Correct.
And that's, of course, what I want to do on the local level as well.
Yes.
All right, so
where was I at?
You were going over, that you should expect retaliation.
Expect retaliation with the whole making waves.
Right.
So he's pretty much telling us not to make waves and not have to argue, but I'm telling my wife that we'll fight for you. The union will fight for you.
That's exactly right. So on that note, that was essentially what I was told. When I got reinstated back into the Carrier Academy, the union president told me that, like, I better keep my head down and not be pushing for these reforms and pushing for the way things are supposed to be in the academy, that I better just play it cool and not do that. And this is madness to me, because what was I pushing for? I was pushing for better conditions, pushing for management to do the right thing. And that's what our union is supposed to be doing. And to be told by our own union leadership that, hey, man, you should just keep your head down. What is that?
Exactly.
All right, so what happened?
So, let's see.
So you have this grievance. You have this letter of warning.
Yes.
Right, over. And it's such a trifling thing, a sleeper for a letter of warning. That's ridiculous. Yeah.
So we have the letter of warning. So we filed the grievance to get the letter of warning kicked out, right? So her shop steward, we filed the grievance with the shop steward, and I told my wife that the shop steward there, he's really new. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Okay? So I told her, I go, you gotta watch this. I go, this is easy to get kicked out. I go, I could get this kicked out really easy. I go, this is all you gotta do. I go, I told her what to do. And then she went to the shop steward. I said, this is all you gotta do.
Right.
So I said, what you gotta do, the shop steward, when you go in there, he's probably gonna settle. And I go, we do not want him to settle.
Right.
I go, so what you need to do is you need to go in there with him. That's our right. We're allowed to go actually at informal A. We have the right as a defendant, our defendant.
Right.
We're allowed to actually go in there with our
absolutely
our union rep.
Yeah, that's in the contract.
So I told her to go in there. So she went in the morning of the grievance. But actually, when she told the union rep that, he said, the steward, he goes, yes. He goes, I'm surprised you know that. He's
right on, yeah.
And
so it's not something that's done frequently, but it is, absolutely.
Yes, I just want to protect her because I know that he's going to settle. And I don't want it. It's easy when you get kicked out, and he's going to settle.
And this is something that, for me as a steward, I would love for employees to be more involved like that. Every single grievance that I've filed, before I make an agreement with management, I talk to the carrier, to the person on whose behalf I'm grieving, and let them know, hey, this is what we're looking at. Is this okay with you?
Yes.
And to me, that just seems like a basic responsibility.
You got to give them their options.
Yeah. But for those of you listening in Branch 2502, how often has the Union Hall done that for you with our current leadership? Do they give a shit what you think about your own grievance that they're fighting for? You can't even get updates most of the time on what's going on. All right. So continue. So she wants to go in.
She wants to go in there and be in there so she can make sure that they don't settle.
Right.
So she goes and she talks to him, and then that morning he goes up to her and says, just to let you know, if you go in there with me, I am not going to represent you. And she goes, what? She goes, well, Paul, our president, told me that if you go in there with me, I am not going to represent you. This is how it is. The union did not file a grievance. Like, my wife did not file a grievance.
Right, this one the union filed.
Yeah, they filed for her on her behalf.
Right.
She did not. It's different if she filed on her own.
Yeah.
But they filed it on her behalf.
Right.
I talked to Corey about this and everything. Like, we were on the phone talking to Corey, and he was pissed about, like, he was calling our president a piece of shit.
Right. So you don't even have to talk to Corey. I mean, Corey nails it. But here it is right from the contract. The union, the union may initiate a grievance at informal step A. Within 14 days, the union became aware of the facts, human rights to the grievance. In such a case, the participation of an individual grievant is not required. And then it goes on down in the explanation. If the union initiates a grievance on behalf of the individual grievant, the individual grievance participation in an informal step A meeting is neither required nor prohibited. Exactly. So when it says there that your wife's participation is not prohibited, what do you take that to mean?
She's allowed in there.
You're damn right. Of course. And there's no compelling reason to keep her out of there.
Yeah.
So to be told that the person who is the most invested in this grievance can't take part in it is madness. So what did, according to your wife, what did he actually say?
Either I go in alone to represent you, or you go in and represent yourself.
Dude.
And that was instructed by the president.
What the fuck does the word union mean? That we are together in this. When I'm defending a carrier as a steward, me and that carrier are on the same team. This is madness.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I was so pissed.
Dude.
Like, I almost blew a gasket out. I was working volunteering detailing in Salt Lake.
Uh-huh.
And I had nothing. I couldn't do nothing. I was just
Dude.
livid.
Yeah.
That's what I could do.
Yeah. I've had days like that. You can't focus on delivering the mail. You're
that's
just thinking about that.
After that situation, that's when I called the business agent.
Okay.
That's when I talked to Corey and find out how the business agent was. I want to know how the business agent was before I actually talked to him.
Okay.
And Corey warned me that she's more of a email hound. She only works by email. That's all she does.
Okay.
And so that's why I decided to talk to her.
All right. So now this is why the business agent office exists. At least part of the reason is because if you have a problem at your local branch, that your branch isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, we have the contract right here. We just read from it. Obviously, your wife can take part in her own grievance.
Yeah.
So if your branch won't abide by their own rules, then you go to the business agent. Where else are you supposed to go? So what happened when you went to the business agent?
So I called the business agent. I called Keisha Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
And all she was in a hurry to hang up on the phone with me. That's all. She did not want to talk to me.
Right.
I was talking to her. All she gave me was an attitude.
Right.
And so I was explaining to her that, the whole situation. And she said, well, your wife filed the grievance, so we don't have to represent her. And I kept on explaining to her that my wife didn't explain. They filed it on her behalf.
Can you please turn to 15.2 of the contract?
So I sent that. I actually sent that to her in an email.
Uh-huh.
And she still wrote the same thing back to me.
Unbelievable.
So I had
too believable.
Yeah, I wrote a whole response back. I think about 3-4 paragraphs.
Right.
Just a whole thing, pissed off about this whole union. I was just so pissed at them. I ended up deleting it, and I wrote back to my president saying, Paul, I'm done with the management, fighting with the union. I'm done fighting with management. I go, this is this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was done.
And this is the problem. We fight management, and we're supposed to be in this fight together. But somehow we've gotten ourselves in a position where we're trying to fight management, and we're trying to fight for our fellow carriers, and then we wind up fighting against our own union leadership. Because
the union is cock-blocking us.
Yeah, that's right. Not only do they not have our back, they're actively standing in our way when we're trying to stand up for our fellow carriers. It's shameful.
We need change in this union. We do.
We do.
Big time.
No doubt. And that's what ultimately prompted me to run. When the concerned letter carriers had their meeting here earlier in July, I was at that meeting. And one of the things James Henry said, he talked about a quote that really motivated him from John F. Kennedy that I don't remember the exact wording, but there's a special place in hell for people who see this moral crisis and do nothing about it. And suddenly the invitation to run for vice president seemed a lot more real. That how can I let this go on in my own union? If I really love my fellow letter carriers and if I really want to fight for them, how can I do that with a local that doesn't have the back of those carriers?
See, you're learning a lot. I don't think it's I know you're worried about your education and what you know.
Right.
It's not the problem. You're gonna learn everything. You're learning enough right now. I think even if you're a vice president, you're gonna learn everything. You're gonna learn everything, and I think you're gonna do an excellent job. That's why I wouldn't. Trust me. I wouldn't be saying. I wouldn't give you my vote.
Right.
If I didn't think you could do the job. If you couldn't do the job.
Yeah, and I think especially I feel a lot more comfortable about it because first I was approached to be executive vice president because of my leadership position, but I didn't feel comfortable, like I don't know anything about running a branch, and so if I have to do that, but the regular vice president position is more of a teaching position, and I feel like that's something that I can really do. Yeah, that's my strength. That's what I'm good at. And then while I'm doing that, we're part of a team where we have the actual president and the executive vice president and the trustees and the treasurer, and everybody's working on this same page. So I don't have to know everything about running a branch. It can be learned along the way, but I have a strength that I bring to the ticket, and that strength serves our carriers. And that whole idea of service is something that really seems like it's missing from the hall right now. You know, when Michael has a fellow steward at his station, a guy running for vice president, Jonathan, and he is now a Formal A designee. And tell me, when you were a Formal A, how was the training?
No training.
Yeah, there's no training. It's crazy. And so because there's no real training coming from our leaders at the hall, Jonathan, the executive vice president candidate, asked, well, can I go to the Steward Academy? And they did not tell him yes. They told him, like, oh, you got to wait for stuff like that. And our president said that he's never been to the Steward Academy. And this is madness to me. Like, this is what these branch funds are for. This is how you get people trained up and get these effective people in these positions. And the fact that our own union doesn't seem to care about that is madness. And I guarantee you, when I get into that position, that is absolutely going to change. And as vice president, training is job one.
Yeah, we need training. That's what we need a lot. Like a lot of these stewards actually go on a Sunday to go train.
They will.
I've done that. I've gone on a Sunday on my own time.
I've done that too.
Yeah. A lot of people that care about our carriers will do that on their own time.
Right. So in our branch bylaws, one of the things that it says is if the branch spends their own money to send union officers for training, that when they get back, they're supposed to hold a seminar about what they got trained on. When's the last seminar you heard about, Dave?
I haven't.
Yeah, that's right. So this is a very basic part of what our funds go to, because if you're going to send somebody off to get this knowledge, the whole idea is that that knowledge trickles down, and it's not happening.
Oh, I never hear nothing.
Yeah.
What's going on?
That's exactly right. And it's not like that training is reserved to stewards. It does not say that in our bylaws.
Everything we hear is probably pretty much from Alan every morning with his stand-ups.
Yeah, that's the training that everybody gets, right? The same training that you're now getting on my new podcast, the Postal Stand-Up, that's what it's like to be at my station in the morning, where I pick some topic and I have this stand-up, and sometimes they get a little too fiery, and I do go after management from time to time. But again, it's in service of our carriers.
Yes.
You know, one example of when I got way too fiery was I had done a podcast episode about, it was the one for the CCAs, when it finally dawned on me about the 4-hour guarantee, that CCAs are guaranteed 4 hours and management was not giving it to them.
I remember when you did that.
Yeah. And it finally occurred to me, like, oh my God, there's no way management doesn't know this rule. Of course they know it. And they are intentionally screwing these CCAs out of these hours when they know damn well they're supposed to give them. And the CCAs are already the most put upon people we have. And that's what I said that morning at the stand-up. I called out management directly about...
I remember that day. You got that guy at 4 hours. I remember that one guy.
Yeah, that's right.
Hours, yeah.
Yep. And right after that, the guy got his 4 hours. And then you know how many times I've had a 4-hour grievance since then?
None, right?
None.
Yep.
And you know, I was down at the hall and talking to Paul about my duty as a steward, because I'd been fired from the academy despite doing a great job. And I was worried I was going to get fired from being a steward. And he says, well, you can't be wasting your time on these nonsense grievances. You got to do stuff like Article 8 grievances for mandating. Now, how often do we get mandated at East Las Vegas?
Very rare right now.
Yeah, almost never. Pretty much never. And the last mandate that happened at my station, the union ordered me to withdraw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they ordered me to withdraw
15 minutes is not worth it.
Yeah, it was a work assignment carrier who came back at the end of a shift, was ready to go home, and got sent back out. And that's a grievance, right? The ODL was not maximized, and so that's a grievance. And he went out, looked up the person, and then there wasn't any work to be done, so he wanted coming back. It was 15 minutes. But that's still a mandate. And so I filed a grievance on it. And when it went to formal step A down to the hall, they ordered me to withdraw the grievance.
And that's bullshit.
It is, because it's a legitimate grievance. And their opinion was like, well, he didn't. So management made the argument that, oh, he didn't really do any work. He just got sent back out and came back in.
He drove. That's work.
That's work. You get paid for that. It's off your assignment. Of course it's work. And it's madness that management made that argument, and then the union hall made that argument. Oh, he didn't really do any work.
That sounds more like management right there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're holding management's water. It's unbelievable. And then they made the argument that it's de minimis, that in the contract, it talks about things being de minimis and they're not necessarily grievances. But what de minimis means in the contract, it comes up, I think it's in Article 3 when they talk about crossing craft, is that like if you've got a letter sitting somewhere, management picks it up and hands it to you, yes, technically they just crossed craft, but it's de minimis. Who cares? We're talking 10 seconds of work. 15 minutes is not de minimis. And I asked that carrier, like, I learned from the wrap session when we had training from the business agent that in order to make your case, you have to show that your carrier has been aggrieved. And so I interviewed that carrier and talked about, like, why did you get off the overtime list? Why are you on work assignment? How did you feel when you got sent back out? And I built this whole case, and then I was ordered to withdraw it.
And you got management to admit that they mandated him.
Yeah, right. That they knew it was a mandate. They did it anyway, so that wasn't even in question. And I was still ordered to withdraw. And then I argued back and forth. And then finally, the folks down at the hall, our officers, tell me, well, you obviously don't understand the contract. You're interpreting it wrong. And so they sent me a bunch of paperwork to show me the proper way to interpret the contract. And it was the letter carrier paragraph, which is about an 8-hour carrier being mandated on their own assignment. And this situation was a work assignment carrier being mandated off their assignment. They're completely different things. And it's like, guys, this is what we're up against. I'm trying to fight for carriers, and our own union is using management's arguments, and they're using invalid arguments in order to stop a valid grievance. And they're like, well, we want to send a message that, like, 15 minutes is neither here nor there. So that way, if a steward or if a carrier gets in trouble for 15 minutes, we can say, oh, we got a deal. And I'm like, no, we want to send a message that we're going to defend the fucking contract. And management's not going to get away with mandates. This is the first one, because we hadn't had mandates in forever. This is the first one, and they need to be put on notice that we're not rolling over. And then I was ordered to roll over. And you know something else, Dave, you answer this question for me. At the Formal A level, are Formal A stewards able to withdraw grievances?
Yeah.
Yeah, you damn right they are. So why was I ordered to withdraw the grievance? If they want it withdrawn, they can withdraw it themselves.
Yeah, that does not make sense.
No, sure doesn't. Sure doesn't. So that's what we're up against. So, and speaking of withdrawing grievances and settling grievances, we have this. It seems like this attitude where the hall doesn't want to handle grievances. Like the knock against Michael, the guy who's my running mate, is that, oh, that guy files too many grievances. He just files grievances on everything. And it feels like the hall is against the filing of grievances. What do you make of that?
I think when filing too many grievances that, they want you to settle at the lower level,
right?
And not even file them or just withdraw them, because if it goes to Formal A, they do not have enough Formal A stewards to actually work on them. So if they don't have enough Formal A stewards, the work's going to go on to the vice president and the president to do that work.
Right.
So if we don't have, like, in some offices, we don't even have stewards. So like the president or the vice president has to be the stewards for those offices too. So they already have a lot of work on their plate. Yeah. So right now they don't want that work.
Right. And this problem is systemic and it's self-created because we have people who step up to be alternate stewards, and after a couple of months, they step back down. because there's no nurturing environment, there's no training, there's no follow-up, there's no hand-holding. You know, it's, well, read the contract and then start filing grievances. And you can't do that. So we have Carrie at our station. She's a CCA, and she's seen me in the break room fighting grievances, and she's taken an interest in it. And she's asked, hey, can I become a steward? I'm like, hell yeah, you can become a steward, become an alternate steward. And I'm thinking about this as a teacher. How do I think, what would be a good way to bring this person on and get her going as a steward? And I'm thinking like,
Your podcast?
Well, yeah, right. But I don't really get in a lot into actually like the filing of grievances. At some point I will.
Well, you do. You give a lot of information.
I do give a lot of information.
The information
There's no doubt
you
about
use,
that.
just reading the contract, just by reading the
the JCAM.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? Like I had to read the JCAM anyway. Why not help other people at the same time? And that's always been my philosophy. Is if I can help people while I'm doing something I'm doing anyway, dude, why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
I know a lot. Like I know most of my stuff.
Yeah.
Just listening to JCAM.
Yeah.
That was nice. That was a refresher.
Yeah, that's right. Dude, and I go back and listen to it myself when I need to remember, like, what did it say in Article 14 about safety? I pop on the podcast and I listen to it. That was the whole idea, was to take down a barrier to this information, right? To some people just aren't readers, and I don't want that to be their barrier.
Yeah.
So,
like me.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are that way, you know, and it's so easy when you're just out delivering the mail. Just listen to it. Yeah. So anyway. So I'm thinking about like, how would I approach this? Because I know the way I was brought in to being a steward, and it sucked ass. And so I'm like, well, why not?
I remember seeing you come in.
Yeah. So why not make her like a paralegal, where if I need, like, she would essentially just assist me in filing grievances. So I might need a certain piece of information out of the contract. Then I can have her go look that up.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and she starts learning the process. And then, like, when I need information, I can explain to her, like, why I need this information and have her file the information request.
Like, what did they do to you when you first, do you know what they did to you when you first became alternate?
If you have something specific in mind, say it, because, yeah.
Vacation board?
Yeah, right.
Vacation board? Something stupid that's not even, like, helps you as a steward.
Right. Yeah. So the vacation board was just a chore to take it off the plate of who at the time was our only steward. And that's fine, but it doesn't help me learn about actually filing grievances and how to handle that process.
I have to learn 8190. Like that's really important for her. That's right. That would be an awesome thing.
That'd be exactly right. And I would have her start filling out the 8190, explaining, you know, what goes where, why do we do this.
It's very simple. They got the instructions on the back. You actually read
Dude, I talked about this on one of my episodes, but I'd probably been a steward for at least 6 months before I ever actually looked at those instructions. And
you see how much you're not supposed to fill out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
A lot of formal gets mad because you're not supposed to fill out that.
Yeah. Oh,
and a lot of informal fill out everything. You're not supposed to fill it out.
Right.
That's why you're supposed to have a worksheet. You put everything on the worksheet.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't know that stuff because, again, there's no training on that basic stuff. And then at the union meetings, we have these training sessions, like 1 hour, hour and a half, once a month for whoever makes it. But they're not tailored to a particular level. They're just whatever, you know, the vice president wants to talk about that week. And so I went for months not even able to really take in what they were talking about because I didn't know the basics.
Yes.
You know, and there's no basics training. Well, I can promise you guys this. If I get elected to vice president, after the election, whoever the new stewards are and anybody who wants to come, there's going to be a basic training.
Good.
Yeah.
That's what they need.
Yeah. And so again, with this new potential alternate steward, that's the stuff she's going to be doing. You know, learning the basic forms, learning how to fill it out. Because all that stuff, maybe it wasn't this way for you, but for me, when I was brand new to it, it's intimidating.
It's very intimidating. Like doing your contentions, doing all that stuff. Like you don't know where you're supposed to put it. Like, you know, you got to learn
exactly.
Everything. Like, you don't know all the rules. You have to be confident.
Right.
The thing is being confident when you do this.
Yeah, and the confidence to like put in an information request and like demand something of management, you got to build up to that.
Yeah.
You know, and to ask for time and say, hey, I need 2 hours. I'm still not good about asking for all the time I need. At least I stopped doing my grievance work at home.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, these are all things that you get nurtured and brought into. And the fact that we don't do that at all with our current stewards, that's the reason we can't keep stewards.
And that's why they have some bad ones. Like going back to my wife, like her stewards at her old office was just plain terrible.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's why going back to her grievance, the one that she had to get settled.
Right.
When they wouldn't represent her, She went in there and she had to represent herself. And luckily, I taught her what to say.
Exactly.
And she is actually, they wanted to sell for 3 months. And she said no. And I told her to send it up because I knew the two formal A's. And the two formal A's was Riggs and Seddon from the other Henderson office.
Yeah.
And I know they're really good.
Right.
And in one day, they had it kicked out of formal A. Done.
That's it. Yeah. And how nice it is to have somebody at the next level who you know is going to have your back.
And I knew they could. I knew they'd kick ass.
That's it.
Those two over there, they'll kick ass all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, like, you have those people that will back you too. So if you're in there, you have people like that working with you, you will do awesome at this job.
That's it. And so that's the plan, is you're going to have union officers who 100% have your back, who 100% want the contract enforced from wall to wall. And that's what we stand for. Dave, thanks for coming over, man.
No problem, man.
Yeah, and Dave got to meet Annie, who is very adorable. She's laying here on the couch right between us right now. And this went well. And
so anybody that's listening from Vegas, vote for Alan.
There you go.
I think he'll do an awesome job.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And if you know anybody at East Las Vegas, call them, ask them about me, and they'll tell you the same. Or I hope they will.
Well, they pretty much will.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll catch you next time.